tell me how Ivanti will measure the effectiveness of this kind of approach, especially because we know in the work area KPIs is everything?
We actually changed our entire methodology on how we do pen tests and went from just doing white box testing to actually doing white and gray box testing. And unfortunately, we were the first of 6 vendors that actually got hit by this style of attack. But since we were the first, we've got all the publicity. Building trust is one of I'd say the hardest things that we've had in 2024. Software is not perfect, and software is going to have vulnerabilities in it. It's built by human beings, and we are not perfect. What we're finding is that if we disclose even ones that threat actors aren't exploiting, it gives other software vendors the opportunity to fix their products, and it also gives our customers the opportunity to defend. When you don't understand the workflow and you can't work security into the workflow, what you end up finding is that people are people. They're going to find the easiest way to do something. When we look at what CISA is asking us to do and taking their pledge, a lot of that is very similar to the Cybersecurity Resilience Act that came from the European Union. We hear, that the introduction of ChatGPT AI into the environment can be helpful on the security side, but it's also going to be helpful on the threat actor side.
Mike Riemer, thank you for being with us on Fishing for Insight, our cybersecurity, strategy and business show on RISKINTEL MEDIA. We are here in Paris and you are the CTO of Ivanti. Ivanti is a known company in software security and IT, and 2024 was a year of change for you, and I would like to talk a little bit about it. Earlier this year, you talked about your new Secure by Design approach. How can customers really trust your Secure by Design approach, and what it means exactly?
Our secure design approach comes from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Services Agency, or CISA. And when we look at what CISA is asking us to do and taking their pledge, a lot of that is very similar to the Cybersecurity Resilience Act that came from the European Union. We have 7 basic topics that we're focused on. 2 of those we've already satisfied so far this year, and they were to be more open and direct with CVEs, the vulnerabilities, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, as well as cybersecurity weaknesses, CWEs. And we've already started publishing those, and as we find them in our solutions and fix them, we're publishing those. It had been, a practice that if you fixed it before any threat actor found it, you didn't have to disclose it. But what we're finding is that if we disclose even ones that threat actors aren't exploiting, it gives other software vendors the opportunity to fix their products, and it also gives our customers the opportunity to defend against those types of attacks that they may be seeing in other products as well. So it's a win-win for everybody if we disclose. So that's one of the things that we're doing from that perspective. The other 5 areas have to do more along the lines of looking for specific families of vulnerabilities within our products and looking at the architecture of the software solutions and trying to drive those inconsistencies out that allow for those vulnerabilities, as well as embracing a secure by default type of configuration of the solutions. So when a customer receives them and they first start them up and go to configure them, that it's secure by default. So it doesn't make the customer configure it in a secure way. It already is in a secure way, because we know that a lot of folks don't go through the administrative guide to configure correctly. And then on top of that is just a couple of other policy type of functions, making sure you have multi-factor authentication. And we went a little bit step further outside of the code, and we look at from an organizational perspective. And Ivanti really leaned in at this area where we took it on in our engineering department, and we changed the organizational structure of our engineering department to ensure that we're putting security first in every aspect of software development.
Well, now that you explained to me how you implemented, Can you tell me how Ivanti will measure the effectiveness of this kind of approach, especially because we know in the work area, KPIs is everything?
Yes. So what we do is we've established some performance indicators based upon our product portfolio. So Ivanti does have 4 main product pillars, different types of technology that we specialize in, and we have 72 products that are across those pillars. So we're going through them one at a time, and we're evaluating each and every one of the products at an architectural level, and we're employing these secure by design, secure by default practices across all of our software development teams. As we do that, we're reporting that information out, and we've actually dedicated a spot on our website that is our, Ivanti.com/secure by design, and we will be publishing metric out there on a quarterly basis. The first one will be coming out here in October, and we'll show how we're doing against the number of applications that we have and how many we've completed these processes against. And so that way, folks will be able to go out and say, they've already done my product, or they're 50% done with my product, and validating it's secure by design.
So it's transparent, and we can keep track of the effectiveness. Okay, so what steps has Ivanti taken to advance innovation and adaptive security measures? Because some might say it's a little bit contradictory.
It is, and one of the challenges always is that doing a lot of this type of work ends up being very costly, and it's very expensive. And software manufacturers as a whole, they want to make money. They don't want to spend money. So we have that balance. But from an Ivanti perspective, we're actually moving forward with some very strong commitments in this space. The changes of our tool set that we use from a testing perspective, and expanding our testing style. We actually changed our entire methodology on how we do pen tests, and went from just doing white box testing to actually doing white and gray box testing. That I know that's an industry term, but what it does is it allows our pen testers, those that are doing the testing of the software, to actually use known vulnerabilities against our solution with active payloads. In other words, active viruses, and they're actually attacking our software to see how it responds and make sure that it's staying resilient against these types of attacks. So it's more of a real-world type of testing, not just a lab testing.
Okay, so it's not just theoretical.
Right.
You can,
it's not just theoretical, yes. We are actually actively going against threats that we're seeing in the world today to test against. And I think that's one of the key things that we talk about when we talk about what is secure by design, is making sure that software is able to be resilient against what we're seeing in the threat landscape today and every day.
When I think about security by design, the first thing that comes in mind is, of course, the goal of cybersecurity. However, I truly believe that there is some perks and advantage in the business side. How would you answer to those who think that it's a bad business idea because, for example, it will increase their time to market?
Yeah, it actually, we're seeing the opposite, and it's kind of interesting. The way we did our engineering team, and we restructured our engineering organization to be more in line with the secure by design requirements, in order to spread the security testing across the software development lifecycle, and not just do it at the end or just at the beginning, but to do it throughout the software development lifecycle. We kind of changed around how our teams worked, and by changing that structure around, we actually found that they worked faster. And we're actually able to develop simultaneously multiple teams working on different modules, and then because they're all following the same practices, when we get to the end, they can merge together and build a piece of the software solution. And so we're working simultaneously, so we actually get to market faster with the solution and more secure. That's going through more testing as we're building it.
And how do you address vulnerabilities with your client? I guess thorough communication and contact with them, but how do you build trust with them?
Building trust is one of the, I'd say, the hardest things that we've had in 2024. When we were hit with the vulnerabilities at the beginning of the year, we lost trust with a lot of customers. It was unfortunate that the circumstances happened the way we were, but we were attacked. They were able to circumvent the security we had put into the solution by hitting a new attack vector that hadn't been hit before. And again, unfortunately, we were the first of 6 vendors that actually got hit by this style of attack. But since we were the first, we've got all the publicity. Going in and sitting down and talking with customers, I've had over 1,000 meetings directly with customers, one-on-one, and answering their questions and being transparent and letting them know exactly what transpired, exactly what happened, and how we as a company addressed it, and how we're going to prevent things of this nature from happening again, and our steps to do that. And it's that transparency I think they appreciate. Software is not perfect, and software is going to have vulnerabilities in it. It's built by human beings, and we are not perfect. So it's less about building the perfect software, and it's more about building a repeatable process that you can be flexible and adaptable. So as you need to change when the threat landscape changes, you can respond to what's happening. And then to be responsive. So when we have a vulnerability and it gets reported to us, that we're able to give mitigations and patches. So that, and the difference between the two, mitigations in my definition is something that I can apply to my existing system to stop a threat actor from gaining access. And a patch is something that I have to upgrade or apply to after the fact to make it a permanent fix, so that temporary permanent fix. And I think it's the responsibility of software vendors to make sure that we have that mitigation so that people can immediately close and lock the door, but then have that long-term patch and make that available to them as quickly as possible so they can adapt that as their go-forward strategy. But that's the way I see as rebuilding that trust, is being flexible, being nimble, being responsive, and being transparent.
Transparency is very important, actually. A lot of experts that I talk with always talk to me about transparency because, as you said, and you said it very well, like we are human. So, of course, everyone experiences at some point this kind of things. But transparency, communication, being able to go forward to the client, I think this what will do the difference in this kind of situation. Is shifting toward the secure by design approach, is it a confirmation that no expo testing process can be enough in themselves to avoid any vulnerabilities?
Yeah, it's as we just said, it doesn't matter how much we test, it doesn't matter how much effort we put into, we can only test from what we know. And nobody has a crystal ball that they can look into to see what the next attack vector is going to be. If I was able to do that, I would have done that in December, and January would have never happened for us. But when these new attack vectors come up and a threat actor does something that we've never seen before in the industry, first of all, as responsible vendors within the industry, we need to be sharing information with each other. And that's one of the things that I'm very proud to say, that working with CISA and Secure by Design, one of the things that we're doing is meeting with our competitors and at the table in collaboration to share information with each other on what we're seeing from threat actors. And I think that's monumental for the industry. But being able to support that and work and understand what's going on, that is the only way we're going to be able to respond, because, as we said, there's no way to create perfect software that'll never be exploited. The threat actors are going to find something. We just need to be able to be responsive to it.
And starting now, what will be your process to address vulnerabilities? Do you expect maybe that the Secure by Design approach will shorten the patching time?
We actually have seen that already. Okay. And with the Secure by Design approach, another thing that we're asked to do is to develop a robust security ecosystem outside of our own, and that's where we rely upon your listeners and researchers and people to come through our bug bounty program, which is a very robust program. We just got done overhauling it in the second quarter of this year, and then being able to go through our responsible disclosure programs. We were recognized by one of the industry analysts that they actually awarded us with an award at Black Hat this year for the most improved vendor. They admittedly started off rough in January, and by Black Hat they had seen significant improvement in our response time and our responses to vulnerabilities as a whole, that they're actually very proactive with us now. So that grows our ecosystem of security. And so we have more people coming up to us and saying, hey, I found this, or I think I found something in your software. And then we can review it. And if it is something valid, we can take care of it and get that patch in place and get that taken care of, and then reward them for their efforts for participating in the program, as it were. So.
Since we're talking about patching time and we're on the subject, what are your thoughts on the 24 hours vulnerability notification requirement proposed in the European Cyber Resilience Act?
Yeah, so CRA does ask for 24-hour notice, and the challenge I have with that a lot of times is we as a software vendor often don't know the full extent of a vulnerability within 24 hours. We get notified of it, and we start to review what's going on. A lot of times they're false positives. A lot of times it's not a code issue, it's a configuration issue, or it's some other aspect of the environment that's causing the problem. When we actually do get a root cause, then I believe that once you have a root cause analysis, notification within 24 hours would be appropriate. But I think the Cyber Resiliency asks that it's 24 hours from the time we get notified. And I think that should be 24 hours from the time we determine root cause. Because once we know what the root cause is, and we know, then developing mitigation, as I said, that temporary fix, and then the patch afterwards, that's obtainable by software vendors. But if we say that we have to go out and tell everybody what's going on before we know, we're just opening the door up to more people being exploited.
Yeah, because it's also a way to give information to the attackers. So
exactly.
You are notifying people that are not malevolent, but in the same time, maybe cyber hackers. So it's not the best practice, I guess.
And that's always the balance in communication. And and what we've found in the past 8 months is we've been very, very transparent with anything that we found in our software. And as we're going forward with Secure by Design, we're releasing more vulnerabilities, notifications, and we're releasing these new CWEs, the weakness, the cybersecurity weaknesses. And these are meant to allow customers, defenders, to put up defenses in their environment to protect against maybe some other solution being attacked the same way. But at the same time, it's telling the threat actors what they can exploit.
Yeah, here it's there.
Exactly, it's there. Go ahead and try and keep poking at it. You might find something. And so it's a give and take type of communication, but we're being asked to lean in and be transparent about that. Sometimes, we're taking a little bit of a hit from a publicity perspective, and it's like, oh, Ivanti has another vulnerability they've released. That's what we're being asked to do as we find them. When we or our security ecosystem finds it and we fix it and then we announce it, we're helping everybody else protect. And so it should be viewed as a good thing, but that's a cultural shift that we have to make with the public so that they understand that when these are coming out and being notified, if it's in the wild and being exploited, yeah, that's bad. But if it's being found by the vendor through their secure ecosystem, then that's just good because everybody is going to profit from that as far as from a security perspective.
Let's talk about user experience. From my experience, it's not really something that is taken into account in cybersecurity. And as a matter of fact, there is a research paper from Ivanti that came out not long ago that stipulate that only 13% of professionals think that it's a critical issue. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, actually, I just got done doing a security blog on this, and it's posted out on our website as well. But what I see happening in this situation is that between CIOs and CISOs, they do have a tendency of being very security focused. And when they do, they don't really understand the user's workflow. And when you don't understand the workflow and you can't work security into the workflow, what you end up finding is that people are people. They're going to find the easiest way to do something.
Always.
Always. And so if you don't make security easy for them, if you don't make it as part of their default routine, they're going to find a way around it, and they will every time. And so I think what CISOs and what CIOs need to do as they're looking at security solutions, they need to understand the workflow of the users that they're impacting and how they can blend the two, the tools with the workflow, to make it as seamless for the users as possible. Because if we make that change, you're adding resistance to them and their workflow. So.
And it will be counterproductive, actually, because you want the employee to do the good stuff, to be resilient, to have a good and strong password, to not bypass some securities. But if you make it challenging on a daily basis, they will try, as you said, to find an easiest way, and it's not always the secure way. So
it's never the secure way.
It's never the secure way. What challenges the CISO needs to address when balancing cybersecurity best practices, productivity, and employee experience?
Yeah, I think we just covered that. I mean, we need to make sure that as a CISO, when I'm looking at policies and I'm looking at tools with the CIO and what we're going to implement, we need to make sure that we fully understand what that user's end result is. If their end result is to take multiple databases and combine that into a spreadsheet of some sort and index on it and so forth, if I make that user have to authenticate to every one of the databases to pull from information from, that's going to become very laborious for them. They're having to authenticate and re-authenticate multiple times a day, and they're going to try and find a way around it, which they will. They're very, very clever when you give them that.
True.
So,
unfortunately true.
Exactly. So if there's a way that we can use, multi-factor authentication or single sign-on in these types of instances, and we can look at technology to help to streamline the user experience and make it less of a friction for them to use the security tool, they will. And so that's from my perspective as I'm looking at policies and I'm looking at implementation processes, I'm always looking for making sure that the end user's experience is highlighted in that.
And do you have maybe some strategies, good strategies or use case where security was implemented, but it didn't impact the workflow of employee, the experience? And do you think it's a top priority that needs to be considered by CISO in 2025?
Yes, and it is definitely something that needs to be considered by everyone as we're moving forward into, because the threat landscape is continuing to evolve and it's continuing to get to more aggressive, and we hear, that the introduction of ChatGPT AI into the environment can be helpful on the security side, but it's also going to be helpful on the threat actor side. So as this landscape continues to evolve, we have to be agile and quick in our response time. So making sure that users are being diligent in doing the processes that they're used to doing, but doing it in a secure manner, I think, is what's key. And if we change it too much, like I said, they're going to be resistant. So we want to keep it. And I mean, a simple example of that is implementation of multi-factor authentication, and keeping users so that once they do authenticate, that we're holding that authentication token in an SSO type single sign-on, and we can share that across different platforms. It gives them the opportunity to follow the appropriate process process and procedure, and the reward, I don't have to log in 15 times a day. I just have to do it once.
Well, thank you, Mike, for your answer. It was Fishing for Insight for RISKINTEL Media.
Thank you.